Welcome, everybody, to the Real Men Apparel podcast. We are back again with Jared Mortensen, and just to ask some more questions, learn a little bit about what makes him tick and how do you go from being this corporate jockey, for lack of a better term. I'm not exactly sure all of the details of your job, but like, how do you go from being in the corporate world to building this brand and taking this risk, and now your life is like totally different? That's where we want to start it off. So, Jared, the question that I just asked, how did that happen?
Hey, so maybe COVID like helped with that a little bit, like from a transition standpoint. I worked at really big, multinationals for quite some time, big aerospace companies, and then I was recruited to work at a pet products company here in Wichita, Kansas, it was a smaller company, but then we put several companies together and it became a lot larger. When we exited, we were doing about $170 million a year. It was a decent size, company, not huge headcount, but the first part of that was normal, and then we went to COVID, right? And so then we started we transitioned to work from home. Everybody was working from home there for a while, and so that probably made it a lot easier to transition from like a corporate type role to just working from home and doing things. Now, working in that pet products company, I was the VP of administration. I had a lot of the back office, HR, finance, customer service, order entry. I was doing a lot of different roles. And so that probably helped as well, going from like corporate, really narrowly focused to a smaller company and a lot more broad. And we're putting a lot of stuff together. And so, and then working really closely with all the other functions on the executive team. And so there was a lot of exposure on things that I didn't have responsibility for in a very, very large enterprise, but we were really tied into, and in a small to medium sized business, it was growing. And so that helped probably with the transition to go and start Real Men Apparel Company. Of course, when I started the business here, it was just me. I was doing like everything, right? So yeah.
Now, I've worked in the corporate world too, and I've also worked a lot of other kinds of jobs, but I know that the paradigm shift from a corporate world to a business startup, especially a business startup from home, where you have all the other aspects of your family life happening around you. And, obviously, I know you prioritize family, like you want your family to be a strong structure from which like your kids can launch from and start their own families. So you've just sort of launched and you're at home now and also probably traveling a bit. What does that look like, or what did that look like at first? And how are you able to manage that transition?
Well, at first, I mean, it was really, we were doing this stuff on nights and weekends, right? Because I started everything when I was still at the pet products company, right? And so I was working there. That was my day job. I was here in Wichita, but also down in Texas a lot, down in Arlington. So kind of back and forth. So I was there almost every other week. And so there were sometimes I could do more versus, but I'm down there. I can't do as much versus here. And so, and then it was really just as I had time, right, to work on designing things and talk. Of course, the factories are all, they're 12 hours different, right? All the factories we're working with. And so I was working with them at night anyways. And so it was after I get off work. And so as I was developing products, it was actually more conducive. I mean, it just was, the time zones actually work better. So I had my first shift job, which was my regular job. And then the starting the business. And so there wasn't as much balance, I would say, or I don't know, balance is not necessarily a good term. It's about prioritization, but wasn't as, doing as much with my kids from a time. But the thing is, when I was at the pet product company, there was times where I was working 80, 100 hours a week. Right. And so there was like,
not the pet products company, you're saying?
When I was at the pet products company, but then once we merged with this other business, some of those hours really reduced, right? Because my job was a lot more focused. I became just the VP of data science. And so I was working more regular hours once that actually occurred. And so then I did have time to actually, work on the business at that point. So the thing is, my family was pretty used to me, working a ton of hours. So I did that in aerospace, and I was doing that in the pet products company. And so I was actually, by being home and working, just even though I was working at home, I was around a lot more than,
Yeah.
being gone for 100 hours a week, where I was just not here at all. And so just, even though I was working here at home with the business, I was just present a lot more, and then starting to be able to work with my kids. Right. So, I mean, they started shipping product. Initially, I was shipping all the product, but then they started helping, doing the shipping and doing other types of things. So we're actually working together. So, so even though we're working, it's something we were doing together.
Okay. Now that's pretty cool, because I've experienced a little bit of that, is beginning to include your kids in that. So, okay, just as a dad, I know sometimes asking your kids to like take part in a venture that you're doing, or just join in with whatever you're doing, whatever it is, like even just cleaning the house.
Yeah.
How was that, like introducing them into like, hey, I'm running this company, come and work with me, and just, here's a trade, here's something to learn how to do. How was that transition?
Well, they were super, super excited about it first, right? They used to sit there and look at the computer. They were so excited for orders when the orders would come on Amazon. They would sit there out in the warehouse and refresh the screen, waiting for another order to come in, because they were so excited to pack it, right? Go pull it and pack it. And so they would like fight over who got to do the next order. And so that was really cool at the time, right? So they were doing that. And so much so that we had my 6-year-old at the time. One time we were out playing football with the boys out in the front yard, and he came and grabbed his mom and like drug her back to the warehouse, and or drug her back. We thought he needed to use the bathroom or something like that. But anyways, he ended up taking her back to the bathroom, or back to the warehouse. And and he's 6, mind you, right? So he's like kindergarten age, right? And so he had gone out there to the warehouse, and he had run the orders, and he'd picked them and he packed them. And then on one of them, when he was trying to put the label on the order, it like got scrunched up, and he was freaking out because he didn't know how to fix it. And so he came to get his mom to fix it. But like, he's never had a mispack or anything like that. So it's super, super cool. And so, yeah, so they were super, super engaged when we first started. Now, it's been 3 years. They're not as excited to go and do orders. So some of the novelty is worn off on doing the orders at this point. But they still, we still ship stuff every day here out of Wichita. Most of the stuff shipping from Amazon warehouses, but we still, we shipped like maybe 30 packages this morning. So,
okay, cool. So me, just personally, I am fascinated with like family culture and production, because I feel that in America, like in the last generation, we were given that whole narrative of, dad leaves, goes off and does work, and then he comes home and like home is the place for dad to rest because he's worked so hard all day and all that. At least that's what I grew up with, and a lot of men probably have grown up with. So I'm just fascinated by that, because, like in a way, this is sort of untested in our generation. We're like almost like refiguring out like how to, like, wait a minute, how do we move from the job being the center of production and flourishing for the family to the home being the center and production and flourishing for the family? So that's why I asked that question, and I'm just really fascinated by that.
Yeah. See, so I grew up in an agricultural community, right? And so like people it was family farms, and so that the job was part of the family, and the family went and worked right on the farm, or they, so it was like, and the animals, and so like you're taking care of livestock and things like that. And so like there was less like separation, because it was that. And growing up, we were poor, and so we had production in our house. I mean, that's my mom, like, essentially we were outsourced, right? So we made like visors, fanny packs, dolls, Cabbage Patch dolls, and things like that. And so we were a supplier for a family friend, my brother's mom's business, to make, I don't know if you remember when everything used to be neon. There was this phase where there was lots of neon stuff, like in the when was that? It was the early 90s. Anyways, and so but there's visors and scrunchies, but all this stuff is like really bright neon. Anyways, and so we used to make my brother's friend's mom had a store and a wholesale brand for these different products, and so she would design them, and we would make them, right? So my mom did all the sewing, And then we would go like scrunchies and stuff like that. My mom would cut and sew the tube. And then we would go and put the elastic in there and tie them. And then she would go. So we had this like little sweatshop there in the house. So we all, but that's kind of like part of for us growing up. I mean, that was one of the things that we did, right? So when Cabbage Patch dolls were super, super popular, my mom would, sew the soft face Cabbage Patch dolls. They weren't the hard face Cabbage Patch dolls.
Yeah.
Soft face. And so she would sew everything. We would stuff them. We would, do all the stuffing, everything like that. And then she put them together, and then she would hole paint the faces and do all that stuff. And then we just, and then she would, she had some friends that had some stores that we would sell those through. And so that is more. Now it wasn't with my dad, per se. It was with my mom, but we were doing that. And then we started working full time. Some of my siblings started working on the farms, when they were like 12, 13, moving irrigation pipe. I didn't start till I was like 14, but I started working pretty full time when I was 14. The summers, really, 60, 80 hours a week. And then during the year, less. Sometimes I was working full time. I'd get off school at 3:30, and then I'd go to the farm. And then you're home at like 7, 8, 9, 10. It just depends on what's going on. But, so that was just part of stuff we needed to do to grow up. But you had a lot more family farms. So you had people that, that was life, that supporting the family was just the business was what you did. That was the kind of just agricultural. So you worked when you needed to work, and then it wasn't the 9 to 5 type thing, right? It was a little more inclusive, right? When you need to cut, when you got to harvest, you harvest, and you cut during the day, and then you may bail all night and then sleep for a couple hours at the farm. And so it's a little different than a kind of a standard type deal. So
that's pretty cool. So 60 to 80 hours a week. How does that compare to your work now?
Well, it's depends on the week. It depends on what I'm doing. It's harder to separate per se, right? Because you're leaving off and going to the office, and you're there for the whole time, right? And so versus working from home, and it's like, okay, I'll work on this project, and then I'll go and do this with my wife, or go help this person at the church, and so it's like a lot more, because I have a lot more flexibility. There's a lot more other activities are kind of interspersed, and so it's not like I'm sitting here clocking every activity, and sometimes it may be feeling all inclusive, or like just you're working all the time, because I mean, things, a lot of times things break in the least opportune times, right? And so it's different than like a 9 to 5 where you don't really have ownership, right? So if my ads stop running at midnight, on Sunday or Saturday night, right, and I'm not seeing sales, then that's my problem, right? So that's my money I'm losing, right? And so versus like if you're just an employee, there's less ownership, of that, where this is my livelihood, try to support the family. And so I'm checking on those things regularly. Like I check our Amazon sales probably 30 times a day. So I literally as soon as I wake up, like several times an hour, really. And so I'm checking the sales to just see how they're pacing as we go through the day. There's certain things like, I expect it to be at this level by this time, this level at this time, this level at this time. And just to see where they're at. I check TikTok probably like 12 times a day, Shopify 2 or 3 times a day. Right. And so, cause it can be a little more steady, and it's not like we're running ads on that, if we send out an email campaign or something like that, or we have something new launch, I expect to see, some spikes and things like that. And so I expect that to be a lot more steady though. And it's less like, hey, something's broken with the ads, like now as we spool up meta ads and things like that, then it's going to be something where I'll be spending more time, just checking to, hey, is it working? Is it working? And a lot of times like just kind of just checking where it's at, and okay, it looks good. So, but then if it's like, hey, something's low here, something's happened, right? And so we need to go and check on. Now it helps when we have other people looking at the stuff. You're looking at stuff, here, Christian's looking at other stuff there. So it's not like just me looking at it. But
okay. That's really interesting to hear. Like, and for our viewers, especially, just to, because, on the outside looking in, you'd be like, oh, wow, look at this brand. It's great. Or like, even if you don't like the brand, you think, oh man, they must just be rolling in it. And when you get into it and you're the one, like you are the guy basically responsible for making sure everything flows properly, how like the money comes in, it is not as easy as it looks from the outside by any stretch of the imagination. And especially I totally understand that working from home, you get up in the morning and like, oh, you got a little miniature disaster to take care of over here. And then now you're working and then something else happens over here and like, okay, like make sure that they're okay. And so I've found myself delegating a lot more to my children, saying like, you need help with that? Here's a challenge for you. Figure out how to do that yourself. I'll help you where I think you need it, but I know you can do that.
Yeah.
So I can totally relate.
So you try to delegate to employees as well. But it's like last summer before Prime Day, right? So we're up late. Lodi, who does our listings, so she was working on doing some last minute things in the listings, and it was like 1 a.m. I'm looking at stuff, and all of a sudden our listings disappeared on our parents list, not the listings, but the parent. And so on Amazon, you have all these children listings, all the sizes, and it rolls up to a parent, and the parents got deleted somehow. We didn't do it. We don't know if it was Amazon or a hacker like that, because you have issues with that where before Prime Day, you'll have like typically some, Chinese hacker, they'll come in, brands will go and attack Western brands, and they'll do stuff to get you delisted. They'll get you classified as an adult product. They'll do all sorts of things to so you'll lose the sales. And then because it can take you hours, if not days, to get things cleaned up. And so you'll get attacks like right before Black Friday. And so literally at 1 a.m. we had this stuff happen. And so I was on the help desk with that. Luckily we were watching stuff I was looking at, and they just disappeared. And so in essence our listings almost like disappeared because each size would show up as like a separate listing, and like it would make so we just would have missed all the sales on Prime Day. And so I was on the phone until like 3-4 in the morning getting everything restored again, and Lodi was working getting some of the stuff we just reloaded. And anyways, and so like that's, you're up all night like doing it, but it's like, hey, we've got to be on for Prime Day. We can't just miss Prime Day. And so that doesn't work, right? So
I feel like that could be like a whole, like that could be a Hollywood movie. It's like the dark underbelly of apparel selling on Amazon.
Yeah. Who you're battling against. Sometimes it's Amazon systems, sometimes it's other black hat brands. So
okay. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so I think this is a pretty good spot to say like, all right, I want to get in. I want to ask some technical questions.
Yeah.
So last time we alluded to like some new product coming out. So I heard rumor. We're in the process of developing this, a possible thong and a jock strap. How's that coming along? What are some challenges? Like, how's that going?
Yeah, so I actually got some of the samples. So this is the one of the thong is actually more of a G-string sample going on in here. They just showed up, so I need to send these to you so you can actually check them out. So I just got them here from the factory. So that's one of the variations. So we're just trying to work on the thickness back here and see, what is ideal, and then attach points, things you don't even think about necessarily when you're wearing something. But hey, do we attach the fabric here? Or do we attach it on the inside, right? So my preference is outside, so it minimizes rubbing, those types of things, right? So these like very, very specific design sort of elements, we have to think about. And then this is the very similar for the jock, right? As far as the pouch and the waistband, but that is the jock. So it does have that thicker waistband, just about an inch on that. Similar attachment.
Pretty standard,
underneath. So it's hard to see because it's black, so it's kind of washing out on the video. But so that strap just comes down and does and doubles back on there. So anyway, so those are the two samples that we have to work with right now. So I need to send those to Chris, so you take a look at them, and then so we can then provide feedback back to the factory regarding the how they the look and the feel and the fit. So
and I'm actually pretty excited about those, because we like the jocks and the thongs that I've worn in the past, like it's like it fits fine, But one of my biggest pain points has been pouch size. Like I'm just like most of the ones that are made, the pouch is either constructed in a weird way or it's just too small.
Well,
And it's just, and I think that combining our pouch with a product that's for not everybody, but for a number of people is a tried and true. They love it. I think that's an awesome value proposition. Like I just think people are going to love it because when you buy that from another company, what you get is kind of just what you get. But when you buy that from Real Men, you can like, okay, let's dial in this fit now. It's like, oh, I wanted things a little looser up front for when I'm at the gym, but I want to maintain that separation so I'm not feeling like just a ball of sweat. And then at the same time, you'd be like, well, like maybe I'm working out during the winter, things are a little smaller down there, so I want to have things a little more snug and together. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think we're going to be able to make a lot of people happy.
Yeah. And there's a lot of other, there's a lot of, depending on somebody's applications, like on the jock, right? So is it somebody that actually wants to wear a cup like with that, right? So we've got customers that are doing like MMA and things like that. And they want, they want to wear a jock, but they need to have space for a cup. And so they're stretch. And so even if you are on the larger side, but want to introduce a cup, you have way more space than what you'd have with the traditional jock that has that fits a cup, because there literally is no space. You just smash. You're just going to compress even more. So and so post vasectomy, right? So somebody's that and they need cooling pads or things like that. So that's the cool thing about the pouch. There's a lot of options that we can do with that to be able to meet different guys' needs with the same product. So it's super cool. So.
Yeah. And now I've gotten this from my wife and I feel like some other people might have this question is, so like ethical manufacturing, like I know that's more of a conversation nowadays than it would have been like even 20 years ago. So what's been the situation like when you go over and look at the places where a product is made?
Yeah, it's a really good point. So I'm glad you brought that up. So we've done independent audits. So I had an independent firm that does audits with the factories to see, hey, is there labor disputes? Is there any type of labor type issues, tax issues, other types of business related activities, and to audit them in that regard. But I visit them, right? So I was there 5 times last year visiting all the factories. Now, of course, I don't speak Mandarin, so I can't talk speak to a lot of the workers, but I'm there. I spend days literally at the factories working with the employees. So when we're working on samples and things like that, we're actually like iterating on that. So we do the designs and then they go and literally just manufacture them out there. So I go out, hang out in the factories sometimes. They have let me sew a few things. Of course, they probably just tossed everything that I sewed, but just because it's horrible. And so, but they're coastal factories, right? So they're, from a China perspective, they're actually very well paid. And so it's not like there are instances and issues out in Western China where there's not good practices. And so most of these individuals, they work there, they live there in the cities. And so mostly in Guangdong province. And so Shenzhen and Human and one in Puning. So I'm there frequently and interacting with the employees in the factory. And so it's not like, hey, we're just like sending this off to some sweatshop somewhere. And so you go hang out there. They got their animals, their pets, after kids get out of school and things like that are coming in, hanging out there. So practicing their English on me. So one of the design, our main factory, Hago, we, one of the designer's son comes and does his schoolwork there after he gets out of school. And so we work on his English. He's about the same age as one of my sons. So I've like shared messages back and forth between him and one of my sons. So that's pretty cool. He's pretty shy, but he'll talk to me about basketball a little bit. American basketball is like huge there in China, right? So everybody loves LeBron James. So he's their favorite. So, but yeah, so that's cool.
Okay. All right. And another, and this is kind of, I feel like this is kind of a universal apparel question is like, okay, different fabrics for the existing underwear that we have. Like, we've got the strapless jock and it's right now it's only sold in nylon. And we've got our boxer briefs and we just came out with the mesh nylon. So I feel like that's going to be a really fun item for people to use, like who want that more of that cooling sensation, especially I'll say down south in America. Like here in America, like, whew, it can get really bad during the summer. So even I appreciate that. So what are some different fabrics that you've been looking at as far as maybe taking one fabric that we already have and moving it over to another item, or even just new fabrics that you're looking at?
Yeah. So our everyday wear products are primarily ELM modal spandex, right? So it's a 95% modal, 5% spandex. So modal is twice as soft as cotton, antimicrobial, anti-odor, way softer than cotton. So like vastly prefer, modal for everyday wear. Now it is an organic material, so it is going to absorb moisture a lot more than a synthetic material would, but it's going to breathe better. So there's, whenever you're looking at a product, you have to think about, okay, what is the application? Like, what are the characteristics that you really need for that product? You need softness, you need comfort, feel, you want breathability, wicking, and so for our athletic products, we're going to use nylon. We do not use polyester. Polyester sucks. Do not wear polyester underwear, right? So there's a lot of negative health consequences associated with that. It's been linked to male infertility. There's a lot of chemicals used in the manufacture of polyester that is very, very bad. And some of those chemicals can leach into the skin. Just Google BPAs and polyester, right? So there's a lot of brands that have been shown to be over the legal limit, BPAs, and it's just not good. And polyester is a warming material, right? So polyester, it's going to retain heat. So a lot of these brands that dry fit things and things, they're using polyester, and it actually warms you up. So do you want to be wearing a material that's actually warming you when you're exercising? I guess if you're trying to like lose weight or something like that, you maybe want to sweat it out, right? But so we use nylons, right? Because nylon is actually a cooling material. So naturally, nylon cools, and it's cool to the touch. That's one of the ways you can actually tell the difference between a polyester and a nylon. If you just touch it, it's going to feel just naturally cooler than a polyester, right? So the polyester will feel more like room temperature, and the nylon's going to feel cooler just when it's just racked or just in a drawer. And then when you put it on, it's going to naturally be cooler. Now, synthetics aren't naturally as breathable as organics are, right? And so that's part of the reason we've been working on some of these different nylon meshes or micro meshes, right? So they may look like a solid material, but because of the weave, it allows for a lot more breathability. And so we really like those where you can get breathability, but it's not like it's just like, oh, it's just completely sheer. Some people don't mind that. Other people, it's they would prefer it not be. And so trying to get the breathability there and then be able to dry quickly. So that's where this new V-Fly nylon mesh, we're really super excited about it from a travel perspective, right? So it's really targeted at travel market where people, if you're traveling, if you're backpacking, either just, maybe you're on the Appalachian Trail, you're backpacking there, you can only carry so much weight, and or if you're backpacking, you're traveling internationally or something like that, there's only so much you can carry with you. Something that's super easy that you can wash by hand, hang dry, and it's going to dry super, super quick. And so not only is it going to breathe really well when you're wearing it, but you can clean it super quick, and so travel really light with it. And so, but the big difference between this new V-Fly and other type of travel products is they don't have a pouch, right? So you can actually be comfortable as you travel. You don't have to adjust all the time, and so you're getting the performance fabric there, high-end fabrics. And so the thing is, like, brands that are probably equivalent from a travel underwear standpoint, they're like
like ex officio. Like I've thought about getting them for a while, but I was like, but I know enough to know that has no place for me to be.
There's no it's like traditional styling on the design. The fabrics are really good. They have great fabrics, right? Very, very breathable, and that's why they are the travel underwear. And so they're just they're really, really really good fabrics. But the design just is not as accommodating to fit, not designed for guys that actually have genitals.
So that's also that's what I love about the Real Men like nylon mesh, because it accomplishes that goal of like quick dry material for travel, which I've actually done, like been in the hotel room and I don't want to pack a ton of underwear. I'm on the road for like 2 weeks. And I have a system to where I can just go to the sink, scrub them up, hang them out to dry in front of the hotel air conditioning or something. And it gets dry. It's dry by morning.
Yeah.
So having that, yet also having a pouch, and it fits a heck of a lot better. Like, oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. So I'm really excited about that too. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's about a good place to close it for this time. We'll see you back here next time we put up a video. And please post your questions below. Post your questions on TikTok, Instagram. We are on X. I don't know if we recently did that.
Yeah,
okay, we are on X now.
X. Not a lot of content there yet, so.
But we're working on that. Until next time, be strong, love each other. We'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you.
All right.